What's up, Guardians? Profane here. Thanks for checking out the video. Here in Season of the Wish, it's never been easier for you to solo a lot of different activities in Destiny, including dungeons. We've got an amazing seasonal artifact that provides so many useful mods that will significantly increase your damage output. So today we're kicking off a series of solo dungeon videos, starting with one of my personal favorites, the Grasp of Avarice. This dungeon stirs up so many nostalgic memories of Destiny 1, and on a difficulty scale, it's about at the halfway point. I would say that the Pit of Heresy, Prophecy, and Shattered Throne are much easier dungeons, but the Grasp of Avarice is not nearly as meticulous with its mid-encounter mechanics as some of the other newer dungeons are. So it's a pretty good stepping off point if you've never soloed a dungeon before. As is the case with soloing any content, experience is going to be paramount. As you get more familiar with each encounter, they'll start to become significantly easier to manage. And with the addition of the new artifact, we have mods like Solo Operative that give you a flat-out 15% increase in all weapon and ability damage. We also have Argent Ordnance, which increases the damage dealt by rocket launchers when you have armor charges active. There's also Flint Striker, so if we incorporate solar weapons, even if it's not a solar build, we'll be able to trigger Radiance, giving us an additional 20% damage to all of our weapons. Revitalizing Blast will be a mod that will greatly benefit you when running a solar build, since it will weaken bosses when you strike them with a solar ability. I will be leaving a couple of different build links for each class, but we are using a Strand Syntheseps Titan build in today's footage. I understand that some of you may not have access to Lightfall, so if that does happen to be the case, I would strongly encourage using a solar build instead. This way you can reap the benefits of Revitalizing Blast and the other solar-focused mods. We're going with Strand because it offers Woven Mail, giving us a 40% reduction in damage, and that's something that we'll be able to continuously trigger much more often than we would be able to trigger Cure or Restoration. And anytime you're trying to solo an activity in Destiny, you have to keep your survivability as the forefront focus. Since we won't have the benefits of Revitalizing Blast, we are going to be using the Tractor Cannon to debuff those bosses, and then following that up with shotguns that have 1-2 punch in combination with our super. As I said earlier, rockets will be a great option when it comes to DPS with either boss, and I would also recommend considering the Lament since it provides you with health regeneration and a full frontal shield. Alright, so let's talk about this dungeon. The opening encounter is pretty simple. We've almost got it done as it is. You get dropped into the Cosmodrome, and all you need to do is defeat the Hive, collect the engrams that they drop, and then return them back to the crystal that's in the cave. Each time you collect an engram, you'll have a timer appear on the left, and if that drops down to 0, you die. So be sure you get back to the crystal or collect another engram before that happens. This will be a reoccurring mechanic throughout this dungeon. This first crystal will require 60 engrams to be deposited before the floorway opens up, letting you into the rest of the dungeon. As you make your way through the Indiana Jones style caverns, watch out for the Shrieker and the exploding Thrall. Once you get to the rusted Gangplank, you'll have to activate several series of switches to unlock your path to the first boss. There are several booby traps littered throughout these halls, so be sure you watch out for any suspicious looking floor plates. But if you just follow along with the footage, you shouldn't have a problem. So you just picked up a Scorch Cannon. This is something that will start appearing a lot in this dungeon. You'll need to use these to activate different machines. Some of them will release engrams, but others will open up doorways. And in this silo, you'll need to use this Scorch Cannon to open up the blast doors to get out of here. But before you do, be sure you pick up that secret chest. Our first dungeon boss, Phry'zhia, is a nasty ogre that spits out non-stop void blasts, so having void resistance will be a good idea. You could see this encounter running through 2 or 3 damage phases, so having heavy ammo finder, reserve, and scavenger mods on will really come in handy. And before rallying the flag, be sure to put on a chest piece with maxed out reserve mods. The layout of this encounter is pretty simple. There's a room on each side. You need the Scorch Cannon to open up these rooms. Once a room is opened, hive enemies will spawn in, and you'll need to defeat them and grab their engrams. And you'll have to rinse and repeat this process until you have 25 engrams. This is how many engrams that you'll need to deposit at the crystal. And once you've deposited, a few seconds later, damage phase will begin. Once the crystal is topped off, you'll have 30 seconds to damage Phry'zhia. You don't have to stay here at the crystal during damage phase. You can go anywhere else technically, even back to one of the rooms. But as you'll notice in the playback, we have left a lot of enemies still alive because we are using the Syntheseps, and we want to be able to have biotic enhancements be active during damage phase. After damage phase has ended, you'll have to rinse and repeat the whole process of taking the Scorch Cannon from the Fallen, opening the doors to the rooms, and then taking those engrams from the hive. Since you're able to regain your super energy after collecting 10 engrams, don't be shy about using your super. It'll make clearing out these rooms a lot faster and a lot easier, and you won't have to waste as much ammo in doing so. After Phry'zhia has been defeated, we're moving on to the Sparrow course, and this one isn't always so fun. But with Sparrows like the always on time, enemies will shoot at you a lot less, making this whole thing a lot easier. Skimmers can be effective, but I find that they expose you a little too much during this encounter. If your Sparrow or Skimmer do take damage, I would advise to jump off quickly and resummon a new one. Sniper and arc resistance mods will also come in handy. As you're going through the course, be sure to hit those green triggers, as they'll extend how much time you have to get to the next flag. Once you've completed the course, don't forget to grab the secret chest. After coming out of the diamond-encrusted cavern, you'll be in the sunken layer, where you have to destroy a big fallen shield. You'll need to launch 4 servitor bombs up into the shield generator. This encounter does incorporate the Scorch Cannon, which you'll need to activate these launch pads. Servitors spawn in one at a time, and they will appear randomly on any of the islands around this arena. Grapples and swords will come in handy because you can very easily fall off the side or get launched too far or too short by one of these launch pads, which would put a quick end to your flawless run. Each servitor is protected with an overshield, and you'll have to defeat Fallen, collect their engrams, and deposit them at the corresponding crystals in order to break the servitor shields. It takes 20 engrams to break the servitor shield, and once it's broken and the servitor's defeated, you can push the bomb onto the launch pad and send it straight up to the generator. Rinse and repeat the process 3 more times, and then grab your chest at the bottom center island, before taking the next launch pad straight up to the final boss. This encounter will incorporate both the Scorch Cannon, the crystals, and the engrams. This time you'll need 60 engrams to deposit into the crystal to trigger damage phases. But this time you'll have to release engrams from their cages by shooting the generators that surround the boss's center stage. This does cause engrams to roll around, and there is water in the middle, Guardian's mortal enemy, so don't go chasing waterfalls in this one. We are sticking with Strand here so that we can keep Woven Mail active, and I'd rather not have to chase around throwing hammers. Still yet, a solar build could be immensely beneficial here, especially for Titans using the Pyrogale gauntlets. The Syntheseps aren't going to be as beneficial during damage phases since the boss will be isolated, but they'll still be beneficial everywhere else. The boss also comes with henchmen, and we could keep some of them alive so that we would be able to have biotic enhancements active during damage phase. But I wouldn't recommend to keep that sniper shank alive, not at all. It'll put a quick end to your flawless run. So feel free to burn a super or two on this guy. The big Vandal and the other Scorch Cannon carrying Vandal could be left alive so that we could still proc biotic enhancements. The Vandal with the Scorch Cannon will respawn every time we empty the clip of the current Scorch Cannon, and after every damage phase, the bigger Vandal and the Shank will respawn. Damage phases take place here on the stage, so you will be relatively close to the boss, which opens up the playbook quite a bit, because you could easily go with rockets, or linear fusion rifles, or you could just as easily go with swords, and 1-2 punch shotguns. Avarokk has just over 6 million points of health, so realistically, most of you will probably be looking at 3 or 4, maybe even 5 damage phases to defeat this boss. Weapon surge mods on your boots would greatly help your ability to deal more damage. But if your goal is a solo flawless run, you should be more concerned with survivability than you are with damage output, and that's the sole reason that we have stuck with a Strand build. One of the most crucial aspects of this encounter is keeping a mindful eye on your engram counter, because you do not want to let that get down to 0, and that can become a problem even during damage phase. And when you do deposit into the crystal, be sure that you have a barricade, a rift, or some form of healing, since the boss will be right in front of you, and all of the enemies that are far away are just going to launch grenades. And with that, we're going to let the rest of the footage play out. I wish you all the best of luck in soloing the Grasp of Avarice and all of the other dungeons this season. If you have any questions, concerns, or tips to help out your fellow Guardians, then be sure to throw those down in the comments below. Thank you as always for checking out the video. If you enjoyed and found it helpful, then be sure to hit that like button below, along with the subscribe button if you're new. Both are greatly appreciated, and both really do help support the channel. If you're a new Light Guardian just starting your journey, or a battle-hardened veteran just looking for a new home, then be sure to check out the Discord link in the description below and join one of the greatest communities in all of Destiny. And until next time, Guardians, this has been Profane, wishing you all some happy hunting.